Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you today: a tougher tier system of COVID restrictions could be imposed in England when lockdown ends in December, as government scientists warn that tiers 1 and 2 had limited effect.
Hope on the horizon. There's an international welcome for the news that a second company has developed an effective vaccine against the virus.
Good morning. The firm's fighting back against lockdown. New charity grants are being made available to businesses struggling with restrictions. We look at what some of them are doing to survive.
Hello, good morning. From Hollywood to Wrexham, fans of the National League side have been celebrating after voting overwhelmingly to allow 2 movie stars to buy their club.
And contact is made. SpaceX's Dragon capsule docks with the International Space Station, marking another advance for America's astronaut taxi service.
Good morning. It's a mild start to the day, and it's going to be a mild day generally, with temperatures above average for the time of year. But there's a lot of cloud around and some more rain across western Scotland. I'll have all the details in 10 minutes.
Very good morning. It's Tuesday, November the 17th. Our main story for you: parts of England which were living under the lower tiers of COVID restrictions may need to face tougher rules when the national lockdown ends. That's according to a government advisor.
Dr. Susan Hopkins said the measures in Tier 1 and 2 areas had not been effective and would need to be strengthened while potential new vaccines are developed. Keith Doyle has this report.
They may well be smiling under their face masks in this Moderna lab in the US. The past 24 hours have brought some much welcome good news. A second vaccine has been found to work. The Moderna vaccine has shown to be almost 95% effective and possibly easier to use than the Pfizer one, which needs to be stored at very low temperatures.
When you combine it with the news of last week of Pfizer's vaccine, you've got now 2 vaccines that are over 90% effective. It really means, I think, we have the tools necessary to finally beat this virus back. And I think that's probably the best news of the day for all of us, is that there really are now solutions in our hands, and we need to deliver them to the people who can use them.
Both vaccines still have to be approved for use, but with many more also being trialled, it's possible that the most vulnerable will be able to get vaccinated before Christmas, with a wider rollout next year. While we might all heave a collective sigh of relief, there's a warning that we're not in the clear yet. Hundreds of people are dying every day with the virus. The Health Secretary for England warned we cannot drop our guard.
While there is much uncertainty, we can see the candle of hope, and we must do all that we can to nurture its flame. But we're not there yet. Until the science can make us safe, we must remain vigilant and keep following the rules that we know can keep this virus under control.
There's still another 2 weeks of lockdown to go in England, after which it's likely tiering will be reimposed. But there was another warning. The lower tiers had little effect, and so it's possible we will see tougher tier measures on the other side of lockdown.
Tier 2 seems to hold in some areas and not so well in others. And so really it depends on how fast transmission's occurring and how well the individuals in the population are taking that advice in. We see very little effect from Tier 1. And I think when we look at what tiers may be there in the future, we will have to think about strengthening them in order to get us through the winter months.
While the successes of 2 vaccines is undoubtedly good news, they are not available yet. The end of lockdown in England won't mean life gets back to normal. Other parts of the UK are battling with their plans. Tougher measures could be announced in Scotland later today. There is light, but we are being warned that we are nowhere near the end of the tunnel. Keith Doyle, BBC News.
Oh, well, let's get more thoughts now from our political correspondent Chris Mason, who joins us. So let's talk about the possibility of perhaps strengthening. What is the government saying, the tiers?
They are saying, Lou, that they are determined, if at all possible, to return to a tiering system in England at the beginning of next month when the current lockdown measures expire. The Prime Minister was explicit in saying that to Conservative MPs over the weekend when he was announcing his incarceration in Downing Street. But what you got a sense there in the report we've just seen is the nervousness that there is amongst the scientists about whether the model that the government it took quite a lot of pain, the government, trying to set out that tiering system in England just a couple of weeks ago. Whether it's actually up to the job, whether the tiering system is strong enough, the suggestions there from Dr. Hopkins that it's not, and therefore the potential that either it is recast and there are additional tiers, or potentially that you strengthen the definition of each individual tier. Now, Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary for England, still pretty guarded, saying let's wait for the evidence. And of course, at this stage, it is quite hard to work out whether or not the current restrictions in England have made enough difference. I think, as so often has been in the case in this pandemic, we simply don't know at the moment what the government's going to do, because it's still working it out.
Yeah, we'll get more on that throughout the programme, Chris, obviously. Also, the Prime Minister has been talking about Scottish devolution as well. What did he say and how has it been received?
Yeah, this is a meeting he had last night with the Northern Research Group of Conservative MPs. Pretty explosive remarks from the Prime Minister, describing devolution, that was the setting up of the Scottish Parliament 23 years ago, as a disaster north of the border and Tony Blair's biggest mistake. Now, there's no denial from Downing Street that that is what he said. It was a private meeting, so we don't have a recording of it. There's been a bit of a finessing of their position from sources saying that he's always supported devolution and it's great, but not when used by nationalists to break up the UK. Scotland's First Minister, SNP leader Nicola Sturgeon, very, very quick in response, saying that to her this is a reminder that the Scottish, or that the Conservatives don't want to give any extra power to the Scottish Parliament, and in her view, independence is the only way ahead. Really, really powerful remarks these, just 5.5 months ahead of the Scottish Parliament elections, where the SNP are polling very well, where independence is polling particularly well at the moment, and so there's a big question coming again about whether the whole UK will hold together or whether Scotland might choose to go its own way.
Chris, thank you very much for all of that analysis. Thank you. We'll see you later. The leader of Hull City Council is asking the Prime Minister for the power to introduce extra coronavirus restrictions, including the option of closing schools.
Stephen Brady says the city has suffered a terrifying rise in cases. Leanne Brown is in Hull for us this morning. Leanne, morning to you. So give us an idea, what is the situation there at the moment?
Morning. Well, the infection rates here in Hull are 3 times the national average, and they've been since Wednesday of last week. They are 776, 221, and there are currently 188 people in hospital here with COVID.
I'm afraid we seem to be having a slight issue hearing Leanne this morning. We'll try and re-establish that and go back to Hull and get the latest on that a little bit later in the programme once we've sorted that out technically. Apologies for that.
Apologies, yeah. US President-elect Joe Biden has warned that people may die if President Donald Trump continues to delay the transition of power.
It's been more than a week now since Mr Biden was projected to have won the election, and he said he needs to coordinate his plans to control coronavirus. Our North America correspondent David Willis has more.
At this North Dakota hospital, staff are overwhelmed. Here and in other parts of the country, they are running out of beds. Such is the impact of a virus that is spreading with breathtaking speed. Joe Biden has warned a dark winter lies ahead, but efforts by his team to come up with a plan to cope with it are being stymied by Donald Trump's stubborn refusal to concede. At risk, the swift distribution of a vaccine.
If we have to wait until January 20th to start that planning, it puts us behind over a month, month and a half. And so it's important that it be done, that there be coordination now or as rapidly as we can get that done.
The president continues to deny that he lost the election and has taken to Twitter to accuse what he called radical left Democrats of attempting to steal it.
We've got to change those.
But his refusal to concede is also preventing the Biden team from taking the advice of government experts such as Dr. Anthony Fauci.
The virus is not going to stop and call a timeout while things change. The virus is just going to keep going. We want a smooth process for that. And the way you do that is by essentially having the two groups speak to each other and exchange information.
Among those urging the president to acknowledge Joe Biden's victory is the former First Lady Michelle Obama. On her Instagram page, she called the seamless transfer of power one of the hallmarks of American democracy, adding, "This isn't a game." Whilst hope is dimming that the current occupant of the White House will prioritise the threat of the virus, health experts are warning that another 200,000 Americans could die in the time it takes for Joe Biden to take office. David Willis, BBC News, Los Angeles.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.